welcome everybody. So I am your moderator for today. I'm Lindsay Weller. I am based here in DC. I'm a actor, model, host, voiceover actor as well. So I am not part of the LGBTQ community, but very huge supporter, ally.
Allies.
So we're just gonna get things started. I'm just gonna have everybody introduce themselves. Just anything you want to say, where you are, who you are, where you're from, what you're working on. We can start at either end.
Oh, I don't mind starting. Hi, my name is Andy ESPINOZA. I am a Winchester-based filmmaker. I'm director, writer, producer, and my pronouns are he, they, and nice to meet you, everyone.
Hi, I'm Jordan Jaime OGIHARA. I'm originally from New York. I am a filmmaker, writer, playwright, and songwriter.
My name is Christopher CUNETTO. I'm a writer-director, originally from Missouri, but I've been in DC for longer than I want to talk about. And I co-wrote, edited, and directed Safe Word. That's here at the festival.
Hello, my name is Mauricio PITA. I am a producer, educator, actor, director, human, lover, anything you want. And I'm also local. I'm DC local, but I've been here for maybe like 6 years at this point. So yeah.
So I guess I want to talk about, this is always a good intro, how you guys got into the industry. Growing up, is that always something you always wanted to do? Is it something you sort of fell into? And what is your primary role in the industry? Because I know we've got some variation up here. So let's go ahead and start with that. Want to start at the other end this time?
Sure.
All right.
I had always wanted to act since I was little. I think the first movie that really got me into like, I want to be this is Jurassic Park, believe it or not. I really wanted to be the kid in the movie, like being chased after dinosaurs, and I thought that it was a really cool.
You wanted to be chased?
Chased by dinosaurs.
Yeah.
But survived.
Yeah.
Of course. But I also, but then I went to school for acting because that kind of like stuck with me. And so my introduction to the actual industry and working professionally was through acting. So I was doing a lot of commercials in New York, and then I did some films, and then the primary focus became theater. And I've been doing a lot of theater and teaching theater here in DC. For a really long time. I work at Arena Stage, if everybody knows Arena Stage. So that's my full-time job. But yeah, that's how I got introduced to it.
Yeah, I made my first short film when I was 13 years old, and it was called Little Orange Riding Hood. And it was a spoof of Little Red Riding Hood, starring my sister and a sock puppet. I kind of took a bit of a detour. I went to art school and ended up in corporate creative, which is my primary career. And have, since the early pandemic, been investing in narrative filmmaking more after spending too many years doing corporate video. So my focus has kind of retooled to writing and directing.
I started off wanting to be a screenwriter, and then I went to art school for screenwriting, and I flunked out of writing the feature film twice.
Oh.
So I realized that with an inch of wisdom, stick to short films and shorter formats. But that was what I wanted to do, was I wanted to write feature films before two professors told me I was no good at it.
Sometimes people are wrong,
Yeah.
Sometimes people are wrong. I won't give up on that if that's what you want to do. Not that writing shorts is, that's also a wonderful skill set to have. But either way, both are great.
I guess it's my turn.
Yes.
So starting in the industry, I just graduated college like back in May, so I'm just getting started. But I've loved movies since I was a little kid. I used to love watching monster movies like Godzilla and that type of stuff. So when I was really little, I used to do like little stop motion films.
I love it.
Ever until high school, I started doing like videography type of stuff. And then when I came to college, I decided, let me study film. So I started doing directing. I started doing writing, try to learn to fund my own projects. But ever since I started dabbling with the industry, I've been, slowly building up. So I've been a producer, I've been a production manager, I've done DIT, so I've done all sorts of stuff with the industry.
So my next question is, which I'm sure this seems like an obvious one, but I guess how has being part of the LGBTQ community, do you feel that that was something like a hurdle to some degree growing up, having this interest, but maybe not seeing it always represented better now, but I'm sure it's still a challenge. So how has that influenced, I guess, or helped you guys get to where you are now, or maybe something, you guys know what I'm trying to say. What's the right way to ask it? Yeah.
Well, oh, I guess I'm just jumping in. I think
Yeah, hop
I
at
think
it.
it was the thing that, I mean, growing up, of course, and I grew up in Venezuela. It was really.
Wait, you're Venezuelan too?
You're Venezuelan?
I'm Venezuelan. Oh my God, that's so crazy.
That is so weird. Did you grow up there?
Yes, I did.
Well, so then you can relate.
Yes,
to what
I
I'm about to
do.
say.
I do.
So it's a homophobic country.
Yeah.
It's extremely homophobic, and I struggled a lot, and I was bullied daily. And the school that I went to was was a school that I shared the same classmates throughout from first grade all the way till I was 17.
Yep.
So I was bullied by the same people my entire life. And so it really informed, I mean, I still struggle with the trauma of it, right? I'm 38 and I still struggle with it. And so it informed how I absolutely see the world.
Yep.
And at the same time, it is the key that's providing me with an avenue of success,
Yep.
right? It is the thing that sets me apart. The trauma that I've experienced is the thing that caused Safe Word, the film that I'm here
Yeah.
to do, right?
Wow.
It wouldn't have happened had I not experienced that.
Yeah.
And the goal is for the art is to find connection. People don't see movies to see me on the film. They go to the movies to see themselves reflected.
Yeah.
And so my hope is to find that community. That's the point.
Yeah, I mean, we're partners in this film, so obviously that resonates with me in more ways than one. But you know, growing up in Missouri, it's a conservative state still to this day. And you know, in high school, I was like kind of the arty weird kid that people didn't really know what to do with. And there were this like group of hot straight guys, and they were all filmmakers. And so I kind of did my stuff kind of in private, away from like the visibility of my friends or my friend group, or like I would make experimental films kind of more alone. And so, you know, I think that kind of, it shaped my creative practice, but it also kind of pushed this pursuit into the background of my life for a while. And then the other thing that ties with what Mauricio was saying is that, you know, as a young gay person trying to figure out your life in a conservative area, you learn to be really observant and sensitive to survive, because you really have to anticipate people's next move just so that you can be safe and not get bullied. I was bullied too. And now it's a gift because I think it makes my writing better. I think it makes my ability to understand the world better. I think that the gift is the ability to observe something acutely, and filmmaking then is a way to reflect it back and hope that we can kind of learn from it together, or at least connect and feel less alone in that. But yeah, I think that, you know, queerness has certainly shaped my life in a profound way.
The earliest manifestations of my queerness in my film art came from a primary identification with female characters. I don't know if
Oh, yeah.
you
Oh,
guys
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
experienced this,
Yeah.
and I just mistook it as like the typical gay male fascination with
Female.
with
Yeah.
right, with the female identity. But then as it just became the thing that drove all of my art, the only thing I was interested in was the interiority of women.
Right.
That was the impetus for me to really start questioning my own gender and how I was able to perceive myself, because I have to believe that my art is in some part a reflection of myself. So why am I writing only about women? Well, there must be some of that feminine
Within you.
Yeah.
within me, yeah.
Well, kind of going back to what Mauricio said, I too grew up in Venezuela, and it was interesting because I grew up during the time of the crisis. So this is an interesting moment in Venezuelan history, because it's like, you know, there's this group that tries to foment itself as, you know, what is a Venezuelan, right? And a lot of times I myself felt like I wasn't a part of that, because my my identity was different and my sexuality was different. And I felt like it's not something I could disclose publicly. Of course, it was also, I grew up right in the 2010s, so I grew up watching series like Steven Universe and Adventure Time, right? So that was for me like a form of escapism to be like, oh, you know, maybe these things are okay. Maybe these things are not bad after all, right? They shouldn't be degraded or anything like that. And quite frankly, it wasn't until I was able to leave to the States that I was able to be more public and essentially like learn by myself, right?
Yep.
What's it like being queer? Because I feel like a lot of like queer folk, when they grow up, like they really don't have a parental role that tells them, hey,
Right.
this is the right way to be queer, this is the wrong way to be queer, right? So it was a lot of trial and error, but I think because of that, it made me more resilient, and I think it has helped me to like shape the way I write my stories, because I think there's something just beautiful in writing queerness, right?
So I just want to say too, I have so much, I mean, you don't ever wish for people to go through struggles, but if you
Right.
have to go through them, I think it's a wonderful thing to be able to then take it and turn it into something productive and something that will help other people. So I commend everybody for doing that, because I think
Thank you.
it's a huge challenge. I mean, personally, but then it's also super brave to then take it and be like, and put it out there for people to see. So I admire that a lot from everybody up here. My next question is, how do you guys feel about the state of representation of the LGBTQ community in filmmaking today? Or is it, I mean, obviously, ideally everything continues to progress, but how do each of you feel about the state of it currently, and what would you like to do or bring to it moving forward? Whoever wants to jump in first. I know that's kind of a big one.
I like it.
Okay.
I think it's great that there's like more stories that are being able to be told more openly, at least also being told by people of the community themselves. I have not watched Bottoms. I'm guilty of that. I know Bottoms just came out, but I want to watch it so bad. I did watch Fire Island. I thought that was a beautiful movie. Essentially like Pride and Prejudice told through the gay experience in Fire Island, right? I think queer cinema is as important to be studied as just any other form of cinema history. And I'm just so glad there's a lot more venues. I myself would love to see more type of stories, like, you know, like an action movie, right? But like the male lead gets the love of his
Or a
life.
superhero, like,
Exactly.
like those like Marvel, you know,
Right.
stories, but with, because those reach
Yes.
an audience,
Yes.
right? Like, I think that queer story is great that we're having films with queer characters and queer storylines, but I still think that they're reaching a
Right.
specific audience, and I would love to have a film or story or a TV show or something that can reach a wider
Right.
audience. And I think that it's a culture balance. It's a dance that we play with.
It's like
with
merging the
culture.
worlds, right? Like
Yes,
they don't
yeah.
have to live separately. It would be
Right.
ideal if they could come
Just
together.
marry.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I mean, I think for queer filmmaking is incredibly important for a variety of reasons, but the two things that come to my mind in particular are obviously, you know, we have like the Ron DeSantis's in the world who are trying to shrink the cultural footprint that queer people have produced and continue to produce. And so part of it is kind of like holding the line in this, you know, culture war that we don't really want to be in as queer people. And so doing that work, creating that art, helps us hold the space that we've created for ourselves, which comes down to maintaining bodily safety in the spaces that we're in. Those things are absolutely related. But then, you know, I think about global film culture, and we think about like putting queer characters in blockbusters, but the problem with that is that these studios don't want to do that because then their film gets censored in China. And so if we as queer filmmakers are, you know, doing the work to put queer people in large films of, you know, $300 million budgets, we're also, you know, doing political work across the globe. And so the you know, the impact of doing this work as artists and putting our lives on the line, our wallets on the line, our safety on the line, you know, to me, helps us in, you know, really big ways. And so, you know, it's kind of like that many hands makes light work kind of a thing. Even though here in America, I think that it's easy to get complicit because you look at, you know, Heartstopper and Red, White, and Royal Blue, and they seem to be successful and find really good audiences. But there's still so much work to do, and we're still hurting politically and culturally.
But even things like Heartstopper or Red, White, and Royal Blue both reinforce these larger hegemonic ideas
Yes.
about white,
Yeah.
gay,
Yeah.
male
Yep.
sexuality. Drek loves Simon.
Yeah.
Is that queer
Oh, yeah.
filmmaking? Not necessarily, because it's still working within these larger supremacist ideologies. I don't know if
Right.
queer filmmaking can really progress unless we get to an actual queer aesthetic that
Yeah.
is rebellious, that brings it
Yes,
back to a
yes.
punk fundament that doesn't have anything to do with chasing a blind profit motive. They're things that actually channel a real passion and a real intimacy and a real feeling that is important.
And I want to add to that, they're all true. And I also think that, I think right now in the industry, we are in a place where, the writer strikes
Yeah.
and the actor strikes, I think, are contributing to a positive change that I think
Yes.
we need in the industry, because it is time for us to not be thinking solely about money, right? And I think that independent films, short films,
Yes.
Yes.
is actually kind of where the future is going,
Yeah.
right? Like, I
Absolutely.
think that this is where the real conversations are happening, and the more we get on strike, the people are gonna go see movies,
Yeah.
and it's about what's being produced, right? And if it's a short film that's available and that's new, this is a window. Right now, we have a moment where we can really start challenging things. But it's true. These movie studios are not gonna fund,
Yeah.
real
we
queer
push it.
stories.
Right.
Unless we push it, right?
Unless we continue to make it and it becomes so viral or so popular that they have no choice but to be behind it because they know that money is involved. They only
Yeah.
care about money.
I don't know why, but right now it's coming to my mind like the Barbie movie. It's not inherently queer. At least some people do interpret it as queer. But I find it interesting, like there's such a public reaction to it, because there's people that are like, oh, this is a very pro-feminist movie. Then some people are like, it's all right. It started feminism, So I kind of think of that like with queer cinema too, is like, I think we should need to be like more, I guess, I don't want to say more radical with our approach, but yeah, definitely be more overtly queer for us to kind of like, accept that it's normal, accept that it's okay and it's a part of who we are.
But now, even with regard to something like the Barbie movie, a queer audience is
Yes.
now being pandered to through marketing, because those are the
Yeah.
people who are largely seen as dominating online spaces of conversation.
Yeah.
And so now it's up to queer moviegoers to kind of determine
Yeah.
their values. And it's weird to determine your values through consumerism, but that's sort of where late stage capitalism has
Yeah.
kind of brought us. Are you a bad gay for hating the Barbie movie?
It's a movie,
No.
Like we can, as movie consumers, right, and movie makers, I think we all have a right also to just determine, if we like the movie or not.
Of
but
course,
also-
of course. Just because I'm a woman doesn't mean that I have to.
Yeah.
I have to. Just because
Yeah.
you're part of a group doesn't mean that. The whole point is to accept people for who they are, right? So you don't want to encourage people to then give that up just because they're a part of
Right.
this group over here, right? That kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to move the line,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Push it, push it,
Yes.
push it,
Right.
push it. So
Yes.
the way other things become more normal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, so let's push the art as far as we can,
Yep.
so that
Yeah.
when we show up into the world, it goes, oh, but I've seen even more outrageous things.
Yeah.
in film, so this is nothing, right? This is acceptable and easy. to
Conditioning.
I've seen Pink
Conditioning.
Flamingos. It's fine.
digest. Exactly.
So
I love
my next
Pink
question is,
Flamingos.
this is kind of a fun one that hopefully if you need a minute to think about it, that's fine. But so you guys were talking about kind of movies when you were kids that you related to, but what was the first movie where you actually really saw yourself, movie or character? Maybe that comes to mind. If that's too tough, we can come back to it. But I'm curious about this.
Where like I saw myself as a queer person, like where I identified myself, or in
Take it
general, like a human?
whichever direction you want to take it. What's the-
Jurassic Park.
They all
Really
dress so
related to the
nice. They
T-Rex,
dress so
right?
nice.
Yeah, no, I was actually talking to my friend Ben over there, and I was saying, we were talking about Jurassic Park earlier today, and I said that I was I can't remember the name of the dinosaur, the ones that goes like, and it goes,
yeah.
It's the one that's
That's me.
It's your fans, the fans.
That's me, that's me.
Oh gosh.
That's not the real answer, but I'm kidding about it.
Well, in terms of like being a member of the LGBTQ, surprisingly, Coco.
Okay.
To me, I found myself very related to Coco because I felt like me, just like Miguel, like couldn't, like it was this thing that was prohibited, but then you
Yes.
find a world where you're able to express yourself and then you're able to like show it to your family and they're able to be okay with it. And I was
Love
like,
that movie
I just,
so much.
I love it so much. And then the second one for me was Bohemian Rhapsody. I have my issues with the movie, but that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah.
But when I watched Bohemian Rhapsody, like for me, seeing someone who was so openly queer, it just, I basically used it like 2 days after I came out to my parents and I was like, Mom, Dad, I think I'm like Freddie Mercury.
I love
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Oh my gosh.
You know, I was in high school when Brokeback Mountain came out, and I wish that I could say, oh, I saw this really great movie that made me feel great about being a gay person. But it was the first time that I saw a big cultural moment happen with a gay story at the center, and it wasn't great. It wasn't good. That movie is a tragedy, and so I carried that for a number of years, and that speaks to the importance of like what gay stories are out there. This was right when Netflix began sending DVDs, and so the only queer films that I had access to was whatever was in the Springfield, Missouri Blockbuster video.
Yeah.
And the answer was like, I don't know, My Own Private Idaho, which is like also not the happiest. And it wasn't until I got to college and John Cameron Mitchell's Short Bus came out that was kind of like the antidote to like the cinematic trauma of even like Mysterious Skin, Gregor Araki's film, which was also traumatic.
Yeah.
But Short Bus just embodied this queer joy, this sex positivity, and really kind of showed me like, oh, another world is possible here, and I really could have a place in it. And also queer stories are about much more than our pain over being gay people, that gay people experience pain in human ways that transcends just like how their queerness forces them in opposition to like the dominant culture. And so it just showed me that, another way was possible.
And don't you just love Justin Vivian Baum's
Oh my God, to
musical
this day.
number?
Oh,
in Short
yeah.
Bus?
Oh my
it's so
God.
good.
Yeah.
Well, I want to open it up to audience now. Do you guys, let's get some questions from you guys. Anybody? Yes.
For the filmmakers on the panel, is there an LGBT filmmaker that's working, who's worked inside of you, or that you look at for inspiration?
The first one that comes to mind, I don't know if they count. Well, they have done a movie. It'd be Rebecca Sugar, only because I love their work and what they've done with Adventure Time and Steven Universe, and then Dana Terra and what they've done with the Owl House in terms of queer rep. I think they've definitely pushed the boundary, at least maybe not in film, but in TV and animation. It's definitely made it more accessible.
I think bringing up Gregor Araki is an excellent touchstone, an incredible filmmaker with amazing ideological concepts and extreme stylistic flair, and it has a bravery that most American filmmaking doesn't even come close to. The best queer cinema other than that has been the Jackass series, though, I think, in contemporary cinema.
I'm ready for that dissertation. I want to read it because I agree with
other
you.
film
Yeah.
series
Yeah.
has such such obvious male nudity and
know.
so much
Yes.
bonding
Yep.
between men. Those guys love each other.
Yes, they
Yep.
do.
Yep.
Yes, they do.
It's the gayest film
Yeah.
series I think America has ever produced.
It really is. It really
And
is.
it's made so much money. You could tell that to the studios.
Yeah, that's right. That's true.
Oh my God, yeah, yeah. These are great answers. My heart belongs to Pedro Almodovar. Talking about the interior lives of women. I mean, Talk to Her, All About My Mother, Volver. I mean, these movies just touched me deeply and resonated with me in part because of the ways that queer people identify with how women have to interact with patriarchy. I think we know that very early on before we have language for what we see in that. And Pedro really understands how to bring those experiences to cinema, and all of his films just deeply move me. They're also, I think they have a very queer gaze, even though they're most a lot of his films are straight people. Some they're also very gay. Other films are other characters. It's really very diverse. But I think that just the way he looks at the world, the way he makes images, the colors that he uses, the way that he articulates drama between characters is very queer to me.
You
And I love
kind
him.
of you kind of stole my answer. I do love Pedro a lot. I love his work a lot, and I usually am attracted to filmmakers, like directors. I like to work with directors with a kind of a similar aesthetic. My first film was with a Venezuelan director named Francisco Lupini, and his aesthetic was
really?
very Pedro. And but I also love. He's not like, I mean, John Waters.
Oh,
I
yeah.
just love John Waters so much, and I just read his his book is
His book, yeah.
amazing, and
Oh, wow.
he's
He
just
doesn't make films anymore. He just
nasty.
writes books.
I know, but he's very involved in the film industry.
He's like an hour away.
Yeah.
He lives in Baltimore.
Now he's just a talking head in documentaries.
That's
He's
true.
amazing.
He's
though.
transcended
He's
the-
transcended. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
amazing. What he's done for the queer
Yeah.
film industry, he's really pushed. He's not afraid. He's extremely honest, and I love that. But aesthetically and sort of heart-wise, Pedro. First name basis, I know him. I don't know him at all.
More questions? Nobody? Yes. Great question.
Go ahead.
No, I'm thinking.
Well, I don't know. I think that's a very broad, like it's a big question, right? And
Yeah.
it changes depending on your feeling and sort of. I am a big. My sort of mission as an artist, I'm discovering that I really like to explore the psychology of queerness. Sort of like, what's the impact of internalized narratives? What happens when we live in an environment that's telling us that we are not worthy or different, right? Like, what happens when you recognize that you're different from everybody else? I think that I operate in those kinds of questions, and they can be connected to other issues, right? Like, you can have a conversation about climate change and still talk about how is that impacting the psychology of queerness, right? And so
Yeah.
that's, to me, sort of the kind of conversations that I like to have with filmmaking.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I'm really
Thank you.
attracted to stories and questions that have characters who find a way to cope with living. And that's really, really broad, but like our film Safe Word, our character finds a small step forward to deal with all of the stuff that goes on in his mind, his heart, his soul every day. The next film that I'm working on has a character who also finds a way through their own trauma. You know, I struggle to exist under capitalism, and I have a lot of resentment for how our world is structured and how it harms so many people. And so I'm really drawn to stories that kind of expose the way systems or the things that we're forced to live under every day hurt us, but also at the end of the day kind of center our ability to keep living anyway. You know, I think there's a lot of power and healing in realizing that, like, although this feels really bad, we can connect over it and we can like choose to do things a little bit differently. I think that shorts can ask radical questions, and you know, I don't know if you guys were in the screening just now, but friend of my friend.
Yeah.
I think asked a really radical question and reframed this you know, man's assumptions about the world that he was living in. Yeah. Oh yeah, totally her too. So I think the format, like you said, is really ripe to ask those questions.
I think the conversation I'm most interested in having through my art is how people within their own community can wound each other and wound each other in unexpected ways. Because within the queer community, we're not always honest with each other. We may think that we've created spaces that are safe for one another, but of course, you know, people are individuals and they have their own perspectives and they're not always in alignment. And then there's often moments where people, just through competitive societies in general. So I'm interested in, it's a sticky question because you want to make your group, your minoritized group look good, but that's not necessarily reflective of a lot of people's realities,
Right.
and that's
Right.
denying
Yeah.
them the connection
Right.
with
Yeah.
the art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in terms of the LGBTQ community, I think the conversation, similar to what you said, was like, are we able to like reconcile as a, I guess, as that community with their different intersectional identities? Like, can we thrive? Can we be able to go above and beyond, or maybe not even like be exceptional? Just be ourselves, regardless of our intersectional identities, whether we're people of color or we're transgender people or people of different like experiences. I think that's something that I think the queer community needs to just accept to a point. With terms to the industry in general, for me, I find it interesting, like the idea of just paying through art. I think a lot of the work that the industry does, like a lot of the, especially the really, I guess, well-acclaimed films, they do tend to go over a lot of, also like not ethical, like work practices. The first one that comes to my mind, unfortunately, is Across the Spider-Verse, because great film, but like I think it's good that we're going through a strike because we're tired, right, of like worker exploitation. To a similar degree, as an artist, right, as a director, like your relationship to trauma and whether that is exploitation or not, or are you able to explore your trauma without being exploitative about it. I think that's another interesting question that I have within the film community.
Another question. Yes.
What advice would you give to queer filmmakers starting out or looking
Here's my contact card.
Oh, I would say that I'm not going to speak from my own experience, but like I have a lot of, just because of the queer experience, I have a lot of things in my mind telling me not to do something because I might going to be rejected or exposed or all of these things.
Yeah.
And it's about doing things in spite of it, like going forward, doing the opposite of what your fear is telling you. That's sort of like, go for it, regardless of how you think it might be perceived. You gotta follow that gut. That's where the key is, I think.
Yeah. I would say be as specific as you can with what you're doing. Don't neuter your don't play to the middle, I think that you see the kind of queer stories that are successful and you're like, okay, well, I guess I got to make it a little bit more like white and muscular or something. That's like a low-hanging fruit kind of an example, but like the more specific, I think about Everything Everywhere All at Once. Evelyn is the most specific character, and yet she brings the most universal emotional experience to screen. The more specific your characters and stories can be, the more you can plumb the depths of what is universal about their struggles.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is what good queer filmmaking does. It says, you know what? At the end of the day, we're all kind of sad all the time, but we can get through. And what draws people in is the diversity of that expression, and queer filmmaking is excellent at that.
From my perspective, a queer filmmaker is a filmmaker, period. The advice that I give to a queer filmmaker is the advice that I would give to any filmmaker, which is be original and make sure that your art is the thing that advances the art forward. If you are queer and you are a filmmaker, your film will be queer.
That's right.
I guess my piece of advice for you, just to keep going. Just keep doing what you love. I know there's a lot of avenues, especially in the DC area. I myself, I'm new to the DC area industry, so I'm trying to just put myself out there as much as possible because there's so many great people and so much to learn from. And just keep, even if it takes you like 5 years to get your first short film, even if it takes 10 years to get your first feature done, just don't stop. Keep going.
Another question. Yes, in the back.
When you have a queer short that was going to quote you as soon as possible, do you have sort of a positive experience around in programs and sort of lost versus relevant programs?
We've had experience with that a bit, but I don't.
Depends on the festival. It can be good and it can be bad.
Yeah, we've had. Yeah, it's weird because I find that queer film festivals or queer blocks and mainstream festivals. I mean, I love queer people, and so I love having an audience of people who I know will understand my experience. And there's something about community building that's happening there. I think when Safe Word has been programmed in like regular blocks, I don't know if it's weird. I don't know.
We have had some tokenizing experiences.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
And that can happen and it will happen. But that's, I try to think, try to assume positive intent because ultimately, like, even if they're small
We're selected.
festivals or big festivals, yeah, the story is resonating with someone. And, this programmer said, we want to bring this story to our audiences. And not every block is going to be curated as well as like DC Short's queer block I thought was incredible and
Yeah, it's
precise
really good.
and propulsive. Not all of them are going to be like that. Certainly if you're talking about like Tribeca and Sundance, if like, great, you've made it. That's excellent. But some of the kind of mid-sized or even larger festivals, it just depends. It depends on the year, depends on the audience.
I'm not on that level yet, so I'll get back to you later.
You will be.
Yeah. I'm actually working on a few queer short films. I'm helping this friend as a producer. It's this project called Soul. It's kind of like an exploration into this queer non-binary person of color as well, and their relationship with mental health and how it affects others. So it's, yeah.
Other questions? I have one.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
So in the LGBTQ community, we're talking about having all the groups represented on film. Who do you think is the most underrepresented category in that group? And how do you think you overcome that? Or is that a tricky?
I think it's a trick question because I think everyone's experience or relationship with the LGBTQ community
Yeah.
is unique. But I think it would be interesting to, I don't know, I really can't speak on it, but I would like to see more.
Yeah, or maybe that's a better question. What would you like to see more of?
Yeah.
We can take it that route.
Definitely seeing more queer people of color, but like their experience reflects like their ethnicity, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I don't know how to describe it, but as a queer Latino, I don't feel like I've seen like, and there's like
Bringing the two together,
Yeah,
right?
like-
that. How does that combination get?
Yeah, because I feel like
accurately-
it's either like a Latino film or a queer film, right? But it's like,
Understood.
at least with
Okay.
a Latino film, it feels like it doesn't, for me, it doesn't feel as authentic, at least not too many movies I feel like I have, hit right where it is. But I think
Okay.
it also speaks more to like the Hispanic American or the Latin American experience more than the, like, person who lives in South America,
Yeah.
for example. Other than that, I think it would be great to see, people with disabilities who are queer as
Yeah.
well, on the front line.
Yeah.
Trying to see more of
That's a
those,
great
those
one.
diverse
Mhm.
experiences, right? Like not just like equated to this one stereotype or this other stereotype,
Right.
twink versus bear, but just
Yeah.
all of it, all of us.
I'm kind of two minds because, I see a trend in like prestige indie filmmaking that focuses a lot on trans characters, starring trans actors from trans creators, non-binary folks. And I think that it's an incredibly necessary and beautiful moment that, our cultural institutions like Sundance are showing these types of films because they do help us carve out that cultural awareness that helps these people be more safe. I mean, the political attacks that are happening are focusing on trans people, drag queens. And so, to sort of answer your question, I think that maybe there's a reason to say, I want to see more trans people on screen because it is vital now. But on the other hand, I think that the question is sort of, I don't mean to insult you.
No, that's
but
okay.
the question is imprecise because I think that the way I want to think about queer filmmaking is how is your film, how are your characters, what is the relationship to like the dominant cultural values that hurt queer people in the first place?
Okay.
And that's based on your characters.
Yes.
Who are your characters? Are they black? Are they disabled? Are they non-binary? And is your story working to kind of challenge those dominant assumptions? Or is it kind of existing within them? Are your characters victims to them? So if you think about queer filmmaking, or if the question is asking how is queer filmmaking kind of like a political or cultural tool toward progress.
Yeah.
I think you just have to be specific in your awareness of how your stories and characters are positioned against the dominant culture that we live in. And is your story actually challenging those things
Right.
that make queer people's lives more difficult, or is it not? And do you want to do that?
Right,
Because sometimes
right.
we need queer comedies starring,
Yeah.
lesbians that bust out of the roofs of houses. That's needed too. We need
Leah
that
DeLaria.
joy. We need that levity. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how to. I don't know. I think it just depends. What I don't want to happen is like pandering. What I
Yes.
don't
Yeah.
is like
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
haven't heard a story of a Native American disabled queer person, so here's one
Right,
for
just-
you,
right.
right? Like I that's the thing that I'm always like scared of. Like I
Yes.
don't want that to happen. I want it to be an authentic,
Yeah.
real story that needs to be told, and that this character happens to have those things because it's essential to the story
Yeah.
making, the storytelling of it, right? Rather than let me
Yeah.
just put this character in so we can like check a box
So,
of
like,
something that we haven't done.
Doing it because we want to, not because we have to. Right?
Like,
Right.
yeah, yeah,
Not
right.
filling up
right.
a checkbox. Yeah.
This is kind of specific, but I would like more movies where Asian American queer characters don't fall in love with white people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ang Lee's The Wedding Banquet is great, but the love interest in that movie is dull.
So what do you, so in like, we're coming to a close in a few minutes here. So in 5-10 years, where ideally do each of you see yourselves? Like what will you have worked on? What's the ideal project? You can do either of those things. I'm opening.
Hollywood.
Yes. I'm leaving the
don't
door
know.
open. You can sort of take that any direction you want.
With money.
Yay!
I want to be able to continue to make features. I think in 5 years, I think a feature in 5 years for me it's what I would love to do.
Yes.
I love the short film format. I think consider it the future.
Yeah.
There's a market in like Asia for short films and other countries. The U.S. has not gotten there yet.
Right.
But we have amazing venues like this, and
Yes.
festivals that are really making sure that there's awareness. But in 5 years, I'd love to have a feature made, which is a big goal. 5 years is not a long time
No, it's amazing. Time
to do a
flies.
feature.
Yes.
Yes.
You can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm similar in a similar boat, but I'm gonna be aggressive in my dreaming, and say in 5 years I want to be
That's my dream.
in pre-production on my second feature. In 5 years. So maybe like one's in the can, maybe like been to some good festivals, maybe gotten some awards. I want to Greta Gerwig myself. I mean, to be clear,
Oh yeah.
let's put that out there. So
Listen, go big.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Go big.
Well, your person was dreaming, so.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, man.
Well, if you're gonna go Greta Gerwig, I'm gonna go Jordan Peele.
All right, all right.
Yes, I like it.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd love to have a feature done. I'd love to have a few more shorts in the can. I'd love to have an official website by 5 years.
Oh, you could do that before that.
Oh, yeah.
Come on, we can help you. Here's my card.
And I'd love to have an EP and a full-length album.
Cool. Nice.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. Well, in 5 years, okay. I want to go to Con.
Uh-huh.
I want to go to Tribeca. I basically started a production company, but I want it to be like a fully realized, like not just like small indie, but I want it to be like an actual true production company where I'm able to write, fund, and produce my own projects.
Yes.
I want to do my first feature. It's animated. That's my goal. I have an animated feature in mind, but I just want
I love it.
it to be like my authentic self, right? Like being able to push that art form as much as possible and see where it takes me. So I don't know. I'll see where I will be in 5 years.
So I think what I want to leave last question, I think. So what do you think is the most valuable resource that has helped you? It can either be LGBTQ specific in that filmmaking realm, or it can just be in general for filmmakers in general. Money. Okay, money's great.
That is the number one limiting resource.
Yep.
I promise you.
For sure.
These kinds of events are important to me.
Okay.
There's a great resource. People,
Yep.
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
You can have a lot of the money in the world, but if you don't have people,
Yeah.
then it's useless. It's just paper, right? Like you need to have people that
Yes.
share your values. And these
Networking.
kinds of networking is big, but networking that's authentic, right? Like
Yeah.
networking
Of course.
that's like
Yeah.
passionate and,
Yes.
and authentic and like, yes, I love what you're doing genuinely. I
Right.
want to help you
Well,
because that can
yeah.
help with money.
Yes.
Well, and what I'm hearing also is a way to connect to audiences. I mean,
Yes.
that's a resource that filmmakers are always trying to get their arms around. and there's a lot out there, and it can be really complicated. And so yeah, like stuff like this, the people that put this stuff together, oh my God, connecting with people who want to experience the art, that's also a big challenge.
Absolutely.
A big city like DC is an enormously great resource because there are so many wonderful locations that are full of color, that are full of interesting people, and not a stone's throw away from Baltimore, which is John Waters' stomping ground. So if you really want to get into your queer filmmaking roots, you can dig right in there. A great location can do a lot of work for you, even just stirring up ideas.
Yes.
It does.
Yeah.
It can really tell a story.
Yeah. I think for me it would be community. Just being able, again, to be in spaces like this, being able to be in spaces where you can freely express yourself like that, tell these stories. Again, I love the DC film. I think I love everything they do. The DC film community is there to support you, again, not just with talent, but with grants and all that sorts of stuff. So just being able to, know that it's out there whenever you need it. I think that's what I love the most.
All right, and so why don't we'll wrap things up with you guys making sure everybody knows how to follow your work and what is coming next right down the pike. So I know we talked about 5 years, but what are you working on now, and how can everybody follow it?
All right. It's a lot of projects, but I just finished a short film. It's titled The Showdown. It's an action comedy about two people fighting over a candy bar in the middle of a play. It'll be online soon. Just stay on the lookout. The Instagram is Showdown Movie.
Comedy or drama?
It's action comedy.
Okay. I love it.
But it's at Showdown Movie. There's a few other projects on, I'm working on right now. One of them I mentioned is Soul. So just keep in mind, follow me on Instagram is sample.txt_1.
I just
I'll
like the
just put that
idea
out
of that being really, it sounds like it would be a comedy, but if you made it a really serious drama, I think it would be.
What has some
That would
dramatic?
almost make it more funny.
Just picture very serious,
Just envision
serious
that.
classical music.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm working on a pilot pitch deck for a half-hour drama called Shallow End, which is a queer retelling of Daphne du Maurier's novel Rebecca, set in a Korean Christian boarding school.
Ooh.
And I am working on the first EP for my musical project with my partner called Elle Summers.
Yay.
Oh, I want to watch that. And hear the music.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm working on a short film. It's a proof of concept for a feature called Crystalline. It is about a drag queen who has to battle hallucinations caused by their addiction to nail a life-changing performance. I like to talk about it as Euphoria meets Black Swan. set
I
in
was
the
about
world
to
of
say, it
drag.
sounds like Black Swan.
Yeah, and I've got our scripts written, both versions, feature and short, and so we're looking for financing for the short, and we've got some talent, we've got some cast, and of course we're here with Safe Word that we did together.
Yeah.
And now off to you, Mauricio.
Oh, how do people follow your work?
Oh, Instagram. .com? We don't do that. My Instagram
Instagram.com.
handle is CUNETTO, CUNETTO. It's the best way.
I'm working on Crystalline with Christopher. I also have a couple of other projects down the pipeline that I don't think are going to happen next year, but one is a comedy about a merman that
I love it already.
Yeah.
that this priest and the 70-year-old woman are fighting over. Yes,
In a
Drama.
lover's way.
in a lover's way.
Yeah.
And then also a drama by Ken Urban, who is a playwright in New York, who is about a man who's trying to heal the relationship with his sister after his mother dies during the COVID. So it's a more psychological
Yes.
Right.
drama.
Right.
And then I'm also helping produce a miniseries, but that's very early, very, very, very early stages. Yeah. Oh, and Mauricio at Mauricio
Yeah,
Pita.
that's the at.
MAURICIOPITA, like the bread, like pita bread.
And I do have one more question. What did you all do before you got into the filmmakers world? You guys,
I was a student.
yeah, you were there already, but I didn't get into acting really until I was late 20s. I kind of, I did the whole DC route, right?
Oh,
Which
wow.
acting is not exactly an encouraged path here. Not discouraged, but just not something that you really think about, or somebody says, "Oh, you should go
Right.
and do that." So I am just curious, what paths you guys had before, if any.
I went to school for acting, and then I was doing acting, but I've been a bartender, a sales associate. But really where I really started to have like a career was
Yes.
in teaching acting and
love it.
theater,
Yeah.
like devising theater, which I don't know if people know what devised theater is. It's theater that starts with people rather than a script. Like it's the people in the group rather than a playwright. That's what I do still to this day.
Yeah, I love it.
My background is really fine art. I'm an oil painter and an illustrator.
Secret talents.
Secret talents.
Secret talents.
So the job that pays my bills is corporate creative. So I work, as a designer, brand manager.
Did you do that like right after college?
Right after college, I worked in arts administration, and then kind of figured out that would make me poor for a very long time, and
Yeah.
tried to pivot to something that would help us, with the cost of living in the city, and that was corporate creative, and I've been doing that since. But I maintain an oil painting practice, and I'm lucky to have degrees in painting and filmmaking, and that fills my soul. But
But not your wallet.
Not-
I know.
I'm kidding.
one day, but yeah, yeah.
Some days,
true.
listen,
That's
with
not
the
true.
5-year plan, we're good to go.
Yeah, that's true.
There we
That's true.
there we
That's
have
true.
it. There we have it.
I worked at a record store. I worked at American Girl for one holiday season.
Really?
Oh,
Love
wow.
it.
Amazing.
Yes.
It's always the parents, not the kids. Biggest headache. I worked in the package room of the
Oh,
apartment
wow.
building that I lived in.
Yeah.
I sold wine for a year,
Oh, wow.
and now I'm back at a record store. Filmmaking's just for fun.
As a teenager, I was an activist, throwing stones, like protesting.
Yeah.
I've had my fair share of that in Venezuela, of course.
Of course.
Of
Yeah.
course.
We've all done that. I've been there. My mom hits the
You know, the cacerolazo, no, the cacerolazo. Besides that, I've done, I used to be a videographer at my university. I worked in a movie theater. And it was in Alamo, too.
Oh,
Yeah,
fantastic.
I sold tickets, and then currently
Look at you
again. Yeah, right? Now
Oh
I'm
my
at the Alamo. And then currently again being a waiter, so.
I just like asking that question because I think it's talking about, trying to reach and inspire people.
Yeah.
I think it's great for people to know, you don't have to always know that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
It's okay to test the waters, and it's okay to
Yeah.
decide whenever that's what you want to
Also,
do.
you have to
Still-
live, and it's okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
And
yeah.
those experiences actually inform your art. They make you a
They
better
do.
artist. You
Yeah.
empathize with people. You understand. I could never play the characters that I play if I had not lived,
Yeah, you know.
if
Absolutely.
I had not been a bartender. You know?
So I always
So-
love that question because
Yeah,
I
it's
just think
great.
it encourages people,
Yeah.
like, just because you went down this path does not mean you can't
Yeah.
Yeah.
take the fork in the road and go the other way if you want to.
And
Just
also,
do it, live life.
Yeah.
And also, like, one thing about that is that sometimes we are so consumed in social media and we see just the good, the thing that people want to see.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if people go into my social media, it's like, oh my God, he's an actor and he's all of that. But no, you have other stuff that you do that
Yeah.
pay
Yes.
the bills.
Yeah.
And that help you.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
let's get real, right? So
Yeah.
great question.
I love it. Well, we have one more thing to get to. I'm going to let you do the honors. We
Oh.
have a raffle. So get those tickets out.
All right.
All right.
Drum roll, please.
Wait, so they're winning?
Wait,
Oh
gonna
my
close my
God.
gonna close my eyes. Okay.
No money, no whammies.
398-7909.
Oh.
There we go.
Yay.
You win this beautiful.
Oh my God.
It's a goodie bag.
A bag of goodies.
That's congratulations. Only one? Oh.
Oh, I know.
I'm just kidding.
Another one.
I know.
Shocks at us.
She gave me one and then ran away. Well, I just want to thank everybody. Again, I'm Lindsay Weller. You can find, I'm going to, self-promote
please.
myself as well. You can find me, Lindsay with an E, K Weller. If you type that in, I'm on IMDb, Instagram, website. So would love to connect with everybody. And thank you so much,
Lindsay.
panel. You guys
Thank
are
you.
wonderful.
It was a
This was
pleasure.
awesome. Round of applause. Well done.